the second question straight away.
Yeah.
So I find that like when I'm tired, it's kind of hard to keep focused and during the practice. And like when I'm extremely tired, maybe like close to like exhaustion point, I find that like when I close the eyes, it's really um, I don't really focus like on breathing or anything. I feel like falling asleep really. So like I mostly struggle not to fall asleep instead of like kind of drifting away with my thoughts or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, does it make any sense still to try practice in like this condition, or it's better just like to do it the other day?
Yeah. So very common question. And even sometimes when we are not exhausted, we close our eyes and we just realize that, oh my God, one more minute and I'm going to just, pass out and sleep and have the best sleep, So this is an interesting observation because we are so used to tons of stimuli, right? Like come on, like the phones, the colors, the news, the sounds, the music, like we are just constantly connected and our brain has tons of stimuli that keeps us awake and keeps us sort of, okay, what next? So as soon as we close our eyes, and intention is actually to have our nervous system to go inwards, shut down from all the stimuli, the first response we are having is sleepiness. So very common, again, without any exhaustion, this is the first thing that happens. The good thing is that it will go away. Like the nervous system does acclimatize to this pattern, to this slower way of being, it actually even finds that even when we're turning our attention inwards, there's still some interesting stimuli to observe, and we start noticing more things, like the breath becomes interesting to explore. All of a sudden we start seeing more sensations in our body, and again, as we keep going further in mindfulness of thoughts and mindfulness of emotions, then it's like the whole landscape we can start spending time with. So it does go away with practice. Another way to approach it is, I mean, of course, if you feel like you're really exhausted and you want to sleep, just sleep, right? Sometimes it is what it is. And sometimes we are tired and your body is basically telling you, I need to rest. And the wisest thing would be to rest. And that would be your choice with awareness of why you're going to rest. So just do rest instead of, okay, I won't practice and instead I'm going to do some computer game or whatever. I'm going to spend another 2 hours on watching something. And so, you know what I mean? If your body tells you rest, maybe it is the wise thing to do. And the final one, sometimes when the sleepiness is not as sort of brutal, you can cope with it. See if you can, at least for a while, explore it, be with it. Like these two questions: what do you notice, and can you be with it for a while? And sometimes what we can notice is that sleepiness, like how does it feel in your body? How do you know that you're sleeping? And so this is where you're like, okay, I know that I'm sleepy because my body is heavy, right? Or my eyes are heavy. My thoughts are kind of very sporadic. And so you make your sleepiness like a subject of your attention. You explore this quality. And this would be a beautiful practice of mindfulness. And then a few practical tips. Let's say one day you will go to a 1-day retreat, or maybe a full day retreat or full week retreat, whatever. Maybe just like what can be helpful. So one thing that can be helpful is stand up. Literally, there's nothing wrong with standing up and doing those 5 minutes of standing, right? But at the same time, you will feel more awake. Another one would be to bring your hands over the head. Another one. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of elevating your blood pressure and kind of feeling more awake. And third one, open your eyes. It's also fine. So again, there's no There are very few rules. It's the perception that in mindfulness practice, everything should be by the book and it's so rigid and it's black and white. It's not always true. It's literally what can serve you. And sometimes opening your eyes can be a perfect way to, just look down on the floor, a bit more stimuli, right? For your brain, all of a sudden it's like, okay, there are colors, there are patterns, but you are aware, you're still noticing your thoughts and you're bringing your attention back to what's happening right now. So very common question.
I pass out. But what works for me, I tried it doing it. So after I do a high intensity training or I run, and when my heart is like, I'm super hyped, and that's when I actually, I don't know, I feel like I'm paying a lot more attention to it, and my body can't switch off so quickly, but it does get me a little bit more leveled after a training. So I tested twice and it worked. So maybe something to test as well.
Yeah, so you would add practice after a workout.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so part of stretching, but also like sort of listening to my body.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's good.
And I think one of our one day we will be talking about it. There's also the whole sort of area that can be explored in mindfulness practice as mindful walking, right? And basically for 10-15 minutes you will be walking, which is impossible for sleeping, right? It's contra indicated when you walk and sleep. So mindful walking or mindful moving. So as an example, yin yoga can be a good one to basically turn it into your mindfulness practice, being in your body, feeling all those sensations while you are in a certain posture. And obviously some of the sensations will be more on a surface, so that it will be easier to pay attention to them. So anything that will serve you at the beginning of your, like while you're still curious and while you're exploring it, this is good. So explore and experiment with it, and let your personal experience teach you. And with time, you will find your way. You will find what suits you, what serves you, and you will start seeing benefits of it. So explore it. It's your experiment.
I do just add that my practice has been to get up and meditate before I have my coffee and my breakfast and everything else, because I'm already kind of calm mind, and it seems, and I don't need to fall asleep because I just woke up. So anyway, that has been really helpful for me.
And another reason why it's helpful is that you know that you will be having coffee, right? We all know that there's certain routine during the day we have that are happening no matter what. And so what's helpful when you're creating these habits, and I'll be sharing with you certain materials on habits formation, is when you stuck another good habit, the one that you want to grow, next to something that you're doing regardless. Let's say, Mirun, you are working out regardless a few times a week. So sometimes you will do your practice while working out. Sometimes you can do it just after you actually finished. And then you close everything, you sit down, but you know that one leads to another. In the morning, it's a beautiful one. I know that you'll be having coffee. I'll be having coffee. Why don't I do it just before? And coffee is just like a treat after. I'm looking forward to that one. And then it's a good sort of way to start the day and to get into the day, to flow into the day on your own terms as well. So one of the reasons why I love when practice is in the morning is it's counterintuitive, because basically you start the day on your own terms. There's so many things that already ask from you. I mean, like you wake up sometimes and there is notifications, and you know that the emails are piling up, and I don't know, someone already messaged you something. But at the same time, instead of reactively going and responding to all of that, you are choosing to switch off everything and spend those 10-15 minutes on doing, in quotes, nothing. So and then when you open your eyes, there's much more, I want to say, wisdom of, okay, what is it? What is it that I want to do next? How do I want to start my day? Instead of just like sporadically start doing things that other people want you to do already. So one monk who lived in some monastery in Nepal was once asked, "What does he think of the Western world?" And the answer he gave was, "Lost in thought, lost in thought." So we are, in a certain way, are very often lost in thought, what's called this autopilot mode. In our head, in our imaginary world sometimes. One of the writers and meditation teachers, Tara Brach from US, she calls it trance, a state of trance. So we kind of in this trance very often. So in our mindfulness practice, we can learn to spend less time in this state of being lost in thought and learn to relate to thoughts in a completely different way. Every new meditator, every person, me included, the very beginning of practice, like you invite a person to close their eyes, you do the practice, and then the first thing they tell you after is like, I don't know, I couldn't stop thinking. I mean, they were all the time, the thoughts. And I usually congratulate this person because, I mean, come on. For the first time, sometimes we just realize how endless this stream of thoughts is. It's like a radio wave that kind of keeps going, or like a roommate you have between your eyes that keeps chatting. And so just the pure realization of it is already priceless. It's already a big milestone that we make. Like, okay, there is this thoughts that are happening in my mind. And we are facing it. The biggest misunderstanding that people would normally have then is that, well, I failed at my practice because I kept thinking and I could not stop thinking. So this misunderstanding that we are practicing in order to stop thoughts is a very common one. I've had it. And I remember myself sitting there struggling. I was at war with myself and with every thought that just popped in every time I wanted it to stop popping in. So if I ask you right now, please guys, stop thinking. I mean, I think about how to stop thinking, and there's those thoughts just they crawl in, you know, like you just when you're like, okay, I got it. I'm actually not thinking. This is your thinking, you know. It's so interesting to see how our mind works, and this is what we want to practice in our mindfulness practice. We want to understand how our mind works rather than control it in a way that, okay, I don't want to think right now, and therefore I am angry at myself for having all these thoughts. So do you hear the baby? Yeah? Okay, good. Sorry about that, if it will be more loud. So the first thing we have to all admit and accept that in our practice, we don't try to stop thinking. We will learn. The point of our practice is to build a capacity to relate to our thoughts in a new, different way. Noticing the thoughts, not believing them, and then also choosing the right attitude to them. With time, as we practice, we will see that our mind will get steadier when we practice. There will be sort of less thoughts, if you want to call it, or the space between the thoughts will be gradually bigger. But it's more like a byproduct of the practice. The best value comes from your capacity to seeing them. Okay, this is me thinking, but not getting into the point of being lost in them, but rather letting them go. Why is it important? Especially in the context of, I mean, in the context of the whole life, but also in the context of preparing for the marathon, preparing for a race, preparing for whatever big event that you're having. When we pay attention to our mental landscape, we start seeing a lot of things about ourselves. we realize that, for example, I'm talking about myself, for example, I would realize that, lots of my thoughts are judgmental. I'm judging a lot. Or, I spend a lot of time thinking about what if bad scenario happens. So I'm more like negative, right? Or for example, no problem, thank you. Or for example, we realize that we spend a lot of time thinking about the past. And so this information helps you to become much more aware of what is driving your behavior, what is the context of your decision making, what is the context of your mood. And there's this graph that would look like this. There's a line, and there's stuff below the line and the stuff above the line. Everything that's below the line is our unconscious, things that we kind of, it shaped us while we were growing up, and all the events from the childhood and adulthood and all these things, they're unconscious. And then unconscious is obviously something that we are aware of about ourselves. So the more we pay attention to our thoughts and mental landscape, we learn to bring that unconscious into the conscious. For example, I've learned about myself that I am a negative thinker. Or I am thinking that I am not good enough more often than, would be reasonable. Or that I am more likely to fail than to win. And again, these thoughts are just thoughts. They are somehow, some people would never have thoughts of I'm not good enough or I'm likely to fail. Other people are more likely to have these thoughts. So every person who pays attention to this mental landscape becomes self-aware of, okay, I tend to think these thoughts more often. I tend to have these thoughts more often in my day. And now I have a choice to perhaps either not believe them, right? Oh, I'm not good enough, I'm like, just kind of go through the day thinking that you're not good enough for the race, or you're not ready enough, or you're whatever is it. And it's like the Carl Jung would say that until we bring unconscious, let me just read it because it's a better one if I read it. Until you make unconscious conscious, it will run your life and you will call it fate. How wise is it, right? And so how can we become more self-aware about what is it that driving us, what is it that motivates us, and what is this mental landscape that we are all having? How do we do this? So all sounds very, makes sense. Sounds even easy, right? Okay, I'm just going to pay attention to my thoughts, and it's going to be, all of that, and it's going to be great, and I'm going to become the most self-aware person in the world. So the first thing we learn to do, and Miran, we talked about it last time a little bit, we learn to label thoughts we have. So it's like you have your attention, you're paying attention to your body, but then this thought comes in, and you're like, okay, this is a thought. Let's call it planning, or let's call it not good enough thought, or let's call it breakfast thought. You give it a label. It's like, okay, I see you, a thought. So, and we basically spend a few practices of learning to label these thoughts. It can be a bit tricky at the beginning. It's like when you label, you're like spending time on like, okay, is it a good label? Is it a bad label? Should I call it this? Should I call that? So it does happen that it can make practice more messy. But even if it's difficult to find a right label for the thought, just simply noting to yourself, oh, it's a thought, already is a good label. Then when you pay attention to these thoughts that come and go, you also notice that a large chunk of them is repetitive. In fact, about 90% of our thoughts altogether repeat themselves. And it's insane that, like, really, like, you think that, okay, I'm thinking about all these beautiful things and it's like so important and stuff, but actually, usually, and some of the thoughts are so sticky, like before a race, before some big event, if you pay attention, most of these thoughts would be about what? Am I ready? What if something goes wrong? What if I need to have that? What if something will say something? What if I, and it's just like, okay, repetitive thoughts. Most of them are also useless. There are some of them that are useful. So you also will start seeing that, okay, this is a useless thought. What's the point of me right now thinking if I am not ready while I'm already at the starting line, right? Like there's no point. You're already starting the race. The race will show if you're ready or not, if you've done a good amount of practice or not. So you learn to sort of like let them, I know it's a bit cheesy, but you do learn to let them go as you see that they are useless at this point of time. But also when you see that a lot of them are repetitive, you can give them sort of themes. And it's like total, all of us having about 10 themes that are repetitive. Okay, this is a theme of me and my relationships. Okay, this is a theme of me and my race. This is a theme of me and my health. And maybe like a couple of more themes. And so with time, it will be very easy to recognize one of those themes. Like you're practicing, it's like, oh, okay, it's a theme of me and my relationship. I see you. This is the whole theme of thoughts that sometimes comes as a wave, but now you can categorize it, label it, right? It's here, theme, and it goes away. Then we also learn to see how thoughts emerge, right? It's like, okay, it's a thought, it comes, I name it, I label it, goes away. And then there's nothing for a while. And then again, another one comes in. So you kind of see the process of it coming and going. And the final step, which comes again with more practice, is when you learn to see it's the one who sees. So it's you step even more back and you are the witnesser of all that thoughts coming and going, and you're completely separated from them. They do not have power over you, which is, especially at your race, in any important moment of your life, is extremely helpful when thoughts cannot have effect on you. Yeah, they can inform you, but they cannot really affect your decision making, your action, your behavior, and you will be more in control. It's interesting how thoughts can serve us, and they should serve us, right? How important it is that we do have thoughts and we can think, and everything that we have right now in our world is thanks to the fact that a human being could think. But at the same time, thoughts can imprison us and they can be extremely destructive. And I'm sure that each of you have in your life example when those sticky thoughts were quite annoying and they were really eating your brain, and you couldn't feel like you're free from them, and maybe they affected you or your decision making or your behavior in a certain way. And if you have some examples, feel free to jump in and share. But for example, I know for myself, when an important event comes, when at work, something that's like really, I know that it's important to me, I get anxious, I get stressed. The night before, my thoughts just eat my brain, and somehow I tend to be negative. Like I'm a negative thinker, and I always think that something wrong may happen, and I will not meet someone's expectations, myself expectations. So it's like you see this happening, right? And are they true? Not really. Are they really true? Not really. What's the point? And so that can be extremely liberating when you at least explore and start seeing them as guests that come and go. Who is your enemy? Mind is your enemy. No one can harm you more than a mind untrained. Who is your friend? Mind is your friend. No one can assist you and care for you better than your mind well trained. So I invite you, if you have questions, if something maybe right now you have a question, maybe you have an example of like, what is it for you? Like, do you find that thoughts can really be your friends or your enemies? What's your common pattern? What's your common example here?
I did want to say, Katya, on the quote, I really like the quote you shared on WhatsApp. So the one you just said, and I really, I think could certainly resonate, because I think even before I actually started like training and running. I think running for me was more of a like a retreat, because it helped me a little bit of, was a meditation, a little bit like a self-reflection while running. Because before that, I think I was in such a negative world and I wasn't good enough, you know. I just wanted to like close myself in a little ball and go in a corner and don't talk to anyone. So, and I realized how, yeah, exactly that untrained mind, you're your biggest enemy. You put yourself down, even though nobody tells you that you're not good enough. Like I never got negative feedback, but in my head, I was like, oh, you know, what if I got, like, I don't know, if I would set a meeting and it got declined, I would take it so personally. I thought like, oh, like, but now looking back, I was just, yeah. So I definitely, I think I've had periods where I was the worst enemy. And then, yeah, when the more self-aware, and I see the correlation for me, it's a combination of, if I don't train for a period of time, if I don't sleep, if I'm stressed, that's when these negative thoughts start coming in. And then that's when it's like a trigger for me. Okay, I need to go out for a run. I need to do a bit of meditation. I need to, because I think my personality, I'm a pretty, yeah, like I get anxious very easily and like stressed. So that's why it's like, okay, I need to get the mind calm down and relax, and then do like become my friend again, get it on my good side. But yeah, certainly many examples.
Yeah. And the first thing you did was noticing, okay, I am a negative thinker and this is sticky and it keeps coming back, and okay, like it's right here. So you're not at war with it. It's not like you know, trying to stop it. It's more like you're seeing it, you're recognizing it, and then you make a choice of what can serve you now most. And for you, it's a rest, or it's a workout, or it's a practice, and you switch the channel.
Exactly. It should really be, I don't know, because I'm Eastern European as well, and like nobody teaches you in school these things. Like you're such a like an overachiever always, but then nobody tells you like, hey, your mind, like you do so many unhealthy things. You should look inwards, and you should really be a topic of education in kindergartens and schools.
What about you, Nikolai? How would you, your mind is your friend or your enemy most often?
Mostly my friend, I would say, but like I'm very analytical person. So like sometimes like when there are certain negative thoughts like coming up, I can go like and explore them in a lot of detail. So that definitely doesn't help, but I really like the idea of categorizing or labeling the thoughts. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to try this during the practice, because I actually find that a lot of things that we discuss here, like about mindfulness and the practice, I can apply for my flying, like for paragliding, because like when you fly and you're like always thinking. I mean, like it's sort of sport where you have to think a lot. That it's one of the reasons I enjoy it so much. But oftentimes, especially like in stressful situations, you start to overthink and think a lot about like what if this, what if that, and like a lot of what if scenarios. And I think just like by categorizing these thoughts, you can kind of like put some of them, like aside, and focus on what's more important. It's at the current moment.
Exactly. The purpose is not to stop thinking. The purpose is to think, right? Like, I mean, not in the practice, but in general, we are thinkers. It's beautiful that we have, like, you would not be able to fly if you were not like be able to think about what's happening, what has to happen here, what has to happen there. But the purpose is to like see the difference. This is right now useless, this is useful. I'm going to focus on this one instead. And let's say before the race, before like 2 weeks before the race, 1 week before the race, there is in general like one theme gets really loud. And usually it's one of those, I was just chatting with someone, it's one of these, I'm not ready yet, or what if, I'm not prepared. What if I don't have enough of supplies? What if I don't have enough? What if I didn't do enough of certain like this specific preparation? One technique also that would be helpful here is like particularly to this theme, give it a name, like a really like a funny name, like a a crazy monkey or a crazy donkey, or like something that would really be like, okay, like I see you. You are the crazy one. Like, I mean, this theme does have its purpose. Like, of course, it is, it worries for you, like it wants you to do well in your race. So you see it, you thank it. Thank you for looking after me, but I'm good for now, right? Because right now you are again on your starting line and you're about to start your race. So there's no reason anymore right now to think whether you are actually ready or not. So just like to hyperbolize and to give it a big name, a funny name, like that will be even easier for you to recognize it, to put it aside and like, okay, you can sit next to me. I see this worrisome, crazy donkey, but then it's kind of doesn't really is becoming you, doesn't help, doesn't identify you and everything you do. So the funnier the name, the better. Yeah, so you can explore your creativity here. Just to call out that towards the end, you will see that it's all very much related. When we're doing mindfulness of the body, of course there's thoughts, right? When we do mindfulness of thoughts, of course there's body. So when we're going to be doing mindfulness of emotions, of course there are going to be thoughts and the body together. So we will put this all together. But today we will just practice this technique, this labeling thing, and then see how it feels. Don't be scared if it gets messy. Again, it doesn't, sometimes it does, like, okay, how do I name and label these thoughts? So find a seat. If you need to switch off cameras, feel free to do that. Otherwise, let's do this physiological sigh. I love it. It's a good one to land. So 2 inhales and complete exhale through the mouth. And another one, inhale. And exhale slowly through the mouth. If you need to do another one, do it. Otherwise, you settling in. And you do spend these few moments to really settle in. Like if you need to move, if you need to make sure that you are in a good spot here, do so. And from here, see if you can direct your attention inwards. And for you personally, how do you feel today in your body? What is it that you may notice right now? It can be anything. Sleepiness is one of those. Physical tiredness in general. Or a loss of energy. Maybe some tension in the muscle, maybe soreness from a workout before. Or maybe just overall contentment and just nice feel of being seated and warm. And so you do this mental check-in. And now we'll go more deliberate and see if you can bring your attention to your breath. Maybe taking one breath slightly deeper to really sense the inhale expanding you and exhale softening. You're making your breath as your anchor or your best friend. You'll always be coming back to your breath, a base always reliable, always next to you, always present, but also moving, like that metronome that musicians are using. And you're exploring your breath for a second in the nostrils, in the throat, in the chest, in the belly. And while you're doing this, see if you can still keep your face relaxed. Sometimes we are so tensing up when we're paying attention to something. No, it's you're relaxed and yet you're alert. You're focused and alert at the same time. Your muscles of your face are soft. You're just touching with your attention the breath in and breath out. And from here, you may also notice that your mind is thinking. Thoughts are like byproduct of our mind. They're absolutely normal and natural. So every time a thought comes in, this is your moment of mindfulness. You're noticing yourself being sort of distracted by this thought. This is where you can try and label it. It can be as simple as simply thought, thinking, or you can be more specific. Oh, planning about my race, or weekend plans, or judging, criticizing. And so every time the thought comes in, you're giving it some type of label. No need to overthink it. And then you bring your attention back to your anchor. And you do it over and over again. And there's no struggle. You're not at war with thoughts. In fact, you're almost, welcoming them. Oh, okay, there's a thought. And you give it a label. Oh, okay, there's another one. Okay, this is a label. Create more space between you, the one who sees, and all that mental chatter. Sometimes there's so many thoughts, it's even hard to identify each of them. Sometimes you may start seeing little gaps of space and silence. This is when you bring your attention to feeling your body, sensing, being. And just a few more moments, as if you're catching butterflies. Okay. Thought, thinking, judging, remembering something. And the attitude of all of this is, kindness. There's no sense of being, resisting or at war with the experience. Now see if you can become aware of the whole body, the toes, the feet, hips, your back, your top of your head, your hands, expanding your attention, your awareness. See if you can notice if sensations in your body changed. Maybe the posture that was comfortable at the beginning now is less so comfortable. Or maybe there's now more sleepiness, maybe more restlessness, and you can't wait for it to be over. Just notice this transition, how our experience evolves, changes. And just stay with it, with whatever it is right now for a second. And in your own time, open your eyes if they were closed. Deeper breath, maybe stretch. Yeah, again, usually there's this thought of, okay, it was easy, it was difficult, I did good, I did bad. So just notice also, that thinking, estimation, evaluation of your performance. It's also a good way to learn about yourself. What type of thing comes first? And if you feel comfortable, and come back to the video. And just a few words, maybe. How was it so confusing to label the thoughts? Was it not as confusing? Just, if anything to share, or maybe you have a question, so that would be also a good one. Miruna, okay, what about you?
I really, since Tuesday, I really like this labeling, and I'm starting to see patterns. But I also, like, for example, gliding and paragliding, because you just mentioned it, Nikolai, it popped up so many times. I was like, I want to do it. How do you do it? How cool is that? How do you do it for 5 hours? Like, I noticed I pick patterns from, like, so many random thoughts that I just would have not expected. But this labeling is really, really great. But when the moment you said, notice if your position became uncomfortable, I just by default, my body changed. I was like, oh yeah, I was actually uncomfortable. So so yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I liked it.
Good. And again, just to call it out, it's amazing that you liked it, right? It's like, yay, I liked it. And it's cool and like all these things. But we are doing this not to like it. I mean, it's important because this means that we will continue most likely. But just if next time you don't really like it and it's like, I don't know, I fell asleep halfway, this is another way to notice, okay, what were the thoughts that came in when I was sleeping? And then you sort of gradually make it much more as a subject of your practice versus, okay, it was a bad one. I didn't like it. It doesn't work for me. And, you know, and then you kind of give up. But thank you for sharing. Good. Okay. What about you, Nikolai?
Yeah, it was great. So I think it definitely helps to stay focused by labeling the thoughts. And I think there was like a moment, I don't know, like 15, 20 seconds. It felt like I didn't think about anything for, I don't know, like after I categorized some thoughts. But then it was funny, like, because I started to think about some very small things, you know, like, yeah, like some things from to-do lists that would never come up to like come on my mind. So yeah, that was kind of strange, but I was like, well, yeah, okay. These are not important, and just like by flagging these is not important, I just kind of managed to get rid of them. Yeah, and the same thing. So like when you said like, yeah, maybe you're uncomfortable, I was like, oh wow, yeah, I'm actually very uncomfortable. I should get a new chair. So
yeah, but at the beginning you were comfortable, right? Like when you were sitting with me and you're like, okay,
it was fine. It was fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
So we learned to notice more. And what was I going to say about? Oh my God. That you said that, okay, and you felt like you didn't think for like maybe some time.
Yeah.
But isn't it actually liberating when you're like, that you welcome thoughts, like you change your attitude to them. Okay, it's not like, yeah, the thoughts like, yeah, come in, I'm going to catch you, I'm going to label you right now, I'm going to categorize you, it's almost like it changes the perspective, and all of a sudden they're not as like you're not that tensed up anymore. Like you would sometimes see a person who tries to meditate and it's like he's trying so much and it's like, his face and everything, like no, this is not the point. No, we want to be relaxed but alert, and this is a beautiful state for your gliding, right? It's like you're relaxed when you're doing this, but you're super focused to catch everything that has to happen in order for you to succeed and do everything right. So it's like it's a balance between, yes, you are doing an effort, you're catching the thoughts, you're giving it a name, you bring it back to your time. So there's a lot of, it's actually utilizing a lot of this real estate right here. So you are working out with the most important part of your brain, but at the same time, all your body and all your the how you're doing it is in a way of being relaxed. Yeah, you're not tensing. Okay, then keep your practice, do the routine, and if you have questions, you can always just write me, and then I'll see you on Tuesday. I hope to see you on Tuesday.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.